Welcome to Audio Star Productions Discussion Group. And today it's Robert Jitter and Weston Simonis talking about song structure. How we doing today, Robert?
What's good to see you, man. Yeah, it's good to talk to you again. I know we talked a little bit before about how to write songs. You know, basically laying down some ideas about the best way to create a tune, the structure-wise, etc. And I think we're up to bridges maybe now. No?
Yeah, that transition from the chorus to the verse again, right?
Right. So we want to cross over that bridge.
Or it could be a guitar solo. It could be a transition from the chorus to the guitar solo. Maybe you're wanting to do some kind of...
Yeah. I mean, nothing is laid down in stone, you know, with this. Of course, there are some books you can get. I mentioned this book. When I first started writing songs I started writing songs a long time ago because I'm not old anymore. But about 5 years ago, I did sign up with NSAI, which is Nashville Songwriters Association International, and I got signed up to this book. So maybe.
What's the name of 6 Steps to Songwriting Success?
6 Steps to Songwriting Success. And the author is Jason Blume, B-L-U-M-E. And this was a book they recommended in Nashville. Okay. Not that I do that much country music, but, you know, country music and pop music, the structures are very similar. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if you know, usually it's, you know, verse, chorus, bridge. But I mean, you know, I just brought that up because you can get a book like this, many books like this, and I'll tell you, this is sort of maybe there are 5 or 6 ways to structure your song from, you want to say classical pop way, you know what I mean?
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. And a bridge is always there somewhere, you know?
It is.
Yeah.
So when I write a bridge, I kind of like make something that sounds similar between the chorus and the verse, but it kind of like a little taily kind of thing, like some kind of little, you know, because I'm more of a metal rock, but I do also write pop rock a lot.
Right. But in metal, there is a verse-chorus structure, right? Usually.
Oh yeah, there's a verse-chorus structure. There's also pre-chorus. There's also intros, bridges, breakdowns, all those kind of things. Right. But when I'm writing a bridge section, I kind of like to write something that kind of like can keep that head, if it's metal, banging, but also give it something kind of like with a little bit of, you know, transitional scale pattern maybe that will flow right into back into the verse riff.
Right. Yeah.
I just guess it's just like sometimes it's the idea, but like when I go pop, I kind of like I'll kind of keep it short because pop is kind of like always, you know, get into the next section as quick as you can to keep it interesting, but you don't want to, like, you know, overplay something too long because in metal they drag riffs out for quite a long time.
How long is an average song in a metal song?
What's that?
How long do you make your songs?
Metal songs, you know, metal, it just depends on the type of metal I'm writing. If it's just an instrumental metal, the instrumental metal might be a little shorter than the song on the vocals, but sometimes, you know, the instrumental metal might drag on longer. I guess it just depends on what it feels and where you feel the emotion of the movement is to the next piece.
Right.
Sometimes I'll drag something.
If you're writing from film, you write totally different than if you're writing for...
Oh, absolutely. For film writing, you want to try to change. You want to do a kind of a change up every 8 bars, bring in something different. But doesn't mean you have to change the riff on every 8 bars. You don't want to just like 8 bars and change the riff to another riff. It could be 8 bars and bring in a different guitar melody right there, you know, and just dropping in something there. That's how I feel when I'm writing, like, for instrumental background stuff. Is like it has to change all the time when it comes to instrumental stuff because
do you actually write there? Do you actually write? I don't know. Some people like study the film or study the shows. You know what I mean? Have you ever done that? Like go and
Oh, I every day I'm watching Netflix, Hulu. I'm checking up the newest films I can find out there, listening to the background stuff, and seeing what their bridge is doing, what the chorus is doing, what the verse is doing in these songs. Some songs don't even have a bridge, a chorus. It just changes the whole time,
Right.
like piece to piece. But I feel like I'm listening to music, like when you do have songs with bridges, like metal definitely has bridges in it. Pop definitely has bridges in it. Rock, classic rock, like you write,
Right.
you kind of write the funk, the jazz, and the blues, and the classic rock. That's where when I hear Robert Jitter, I hear his music,
right.
that in there, right?
Right.
So
It's Jeter, by the way.
Jeter. I keep messing it up. Sorry, man.
You can say it any way you want to. That's
Jeter. All right. So, tell me, when you're flowing with into your bridge, how do you kind of like? Are you kind of like the Kiss kind of bridge, or do you kind of like give it a little flashy take? I mean, I think it's just all the expression of who you are.
Yeah. And of course, it depends on the song. But classical, you don't want the bridge. Usually, the bridge is shorter than the chorus. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's absolutely shorter.
Yeah. So maybe let's say a typical classical pop kind of outline structure for a song would be maybe verse, chorus, okay, and then you go into a solo, a pause, an interlude or something, and then you come in maybe with that bridge,
right?
Interlude. I mean, that's one setup. I mean, there are many setups. It doesn't have to be that way, but I've seen a lot of songs that way, and the bridge is like maybe on a different chord. You know what I mean? A little different taste, a little different feel, and it sort of catch you off guard a little bit. I mean, it fits. It's got to fit, of course, with the song, but with the tonal quality, etc. But it's got to be a little different. That sort of makes you say, "Oh, that was a nice little treatment." You know, that bridge is like a little treatment to get you back into the chorus, or maybe even to go back into a verse, depending on what you want to do. But it's sort of like the chorus goes up like a mountaintop, and then you go into an interlude, and then you get a bridge which goes over. I'm trying to use that analogy as a bridge. It goes over until the chorus again, until you hit that mountaintop again. So it sort of reaches into the mountaintop area of the song again. Maybe you can see it that way. I'm trying to put an image to it, but it's definitely
kind of giving it like an uplift.
Yeah, an uplift, right.
Sometimes I like to do it where it feels like it's dropping.
Right. Or it could drop too, yeah. I think your chorus is always the high point. It's the tip of the mountain. But
bringing it back down. Sometimes it feels like you're bringing it back all the way up in that bridge because you've already, like you're at the chorus and you're bringing it even more until it's like boom, and then you're back down to real.
Right, exactly. So, that's one way to look at it. But there's no, like I said, none of this is written in stone, and you are an artist, so you can create, the way you want. As long as it doesn't sound too weird, and people are used to hearing songs a certain way, you know what I mean? So if you go too far out of that, you could be Frank Zappa, but not everybody can be a Frank Zappa, well, it's totally out, way out there. So most people are expecting some kind of typical structure in what they hear. And the bridge is very much a part of that. And it does give a nice little, a different sort of feel to the song that you normally wouldn't have.
Now, something similar similar to a bridge is a breakdown, and usually most of the breakdowns are something even more simpler because it's the breakdown.
Right.
And when I think of breakdown, usually I'm thinking more like bass guitar and maybe like a bit of the drums kind of coming in with the breakdown, maybe, or it could be like one guitar down to one guitar completely because you're breaking it down.
Yeah. Usually I can see like sometimes the third verse is like the breakdown because when you do the third verse, You probably pausing in between certain phrases, maybe, and you don't have as much instrumentation. Maybe you just have the bass playing or the drum kicking in, and all the other players laying back. Or that could be a sort of a type of. If that's what you mean by a breakdown.
Kind of breaking it for the breakdown too is when I listen to like the orchestral music that a lot of music that you hear on films or like the progressive rock metal that you hear that has the orchestral sound in it. I'll hear them like they'll have this really interesting building intro, and the intro is quite long because it's it's classical music,
right?
And then all of a sudden it gets to this climax before it's going to get into the next piece, and then it will just break down to like simply just like the strings going, dun, 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 or it'll have like a horn just like dragging out this one long piece there because it's breaking it down, and it's just like real quiet, very quiet.
Right.
It's just like, and it won't be too long, but it will be just enough to where it's broke down to one or two instruments, and then all of a sudden it just starts crescendoing back into what's going into next. I mean,
whether you're talking about orchestrational music or if you're talking about a pop song.
Oh, anything like that, it can happen. Anything like that, like the whole down to that one. And if it's a pop song, it could be down to just the vocals. I mean, it happens all the time. Like they'll break down right there on maybe the first verse after the hook at the intro. They might just break down a verse breakdown, because it's just like nothing but vocal. And then all of a sudden you start hearing these the hi-hats coming in, or the kick drum starts kicking again, and then it starts building itself back up, and then it's into that verse riff.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it could be a rap maybe sometimes. I've heard some rap records where you have a melody going along and then you bring in a rap, and that could be part of the breakdown.
Right.
So yeah, it's a lot of ways you can do it. But yeah, it's all the ingredients needed to make decent music. And you find it across the board, no matter what kind of music you're writing or into. They all have these certain basic elements to make it interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when I hear like instruments in your songs that are like, I hear horn sections, I hear guitar, bass, drums. I'm not sure if I heard any of violin string stuff yet on any of your songs. I haven't paid. I mean, most of the time.
Yeah, a couple of my latest songs. I was actually I had a producer friend who's played with a lot of the old school A-list players. He played, I think, last with Van Morrison, and so it was rhythm and blues kind of feel. So there wasn't that many. It wasn't the type of songs where you would bring in the violins and the orchestration, because they're basically sort of a 70s kind of sound, you know what I mean? Where it was, and he liked to play the B3 organ. So that organ, and he was a good player, filled in a lot of that space where maybe if you didn't have him, maybe you would want to bring in some fill.
And speaking of that, when I'm thinking about it, when I'm listening to your music, I do kind of hear that kind of like that disco funk kind of going in your songs. Because
the last stuff I did was basically 70s. It's basically 70s, inspired by the 70s, and a couple of tunes were by some great songwriters, and then I wrote my own songs too. So it was a hodgepodge of my own material with some classic songwriters as well, who came from the 70s.
And you're going to be popping out some of those kind of songs to us here, the disco funk, the classical jazzy sound that you kind of like to do. I mean, because there's a placement for it in the music, film industry, and video games for it. And
I think it still goes around. Things go around. You get into the electronic music scene a lot, but then people every now and then say, well, maybe I sort of like that song back in the 70s. Where they actually had real players playing on it,
I kind of feel like the old band sounds are starting to come back.
I think so.
From what used to be so popular, then what happened is that what I'm thinking is because a lot of rap artists, a lot of EDM artists are there by themselves, and they wanted, and how they got so popular is they had platforms like SoundCloud and Spotify and all that kind of stuff that came out, and these artists got famous on those sites because that was their whole focus, was to try to get people to listen to their music on that site, and the band particular in itself was more focused on, hey, how am I going to play this next gig, versus, hey, how I'm going to get exploded on the internet. And so, hip hop, EDM, all these electronic sounding artists became famous because the fact that they learned how to utilize the internet.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of imagery go. I mean, if you go to electronic concert, not that I go to them a lot, but I mean, it's a lot of visuals with strobe lights and the lights and the visuals and everything else. I mean, because there's just one guy there, so he's got to make up for the, he doesn't have the 5 or 6, players on stage. So, they have the strobe lights and stuff, and it's a whole atmosphere, and I can see how people get in there and, they get.
I hear a lot because I'm very into progressive metal. Progressive metal is kind of like one of those genres that has all these genres inside of it.
Right.
So lately, a lot of the progressive metal I've been listening to, they've been taking electronic ideas, putting them in their progressive metal. I was listening to Michael Romeo the other day, and he has this song called Effin' Robots, fucking robots, basically what it's called, but it's spelled differently.
Right.
And it has this electronic cut, where how they chop up the song, and it cuts in and out. It had sections like that in there.
Right.
And
you can do the same. I could take some classical feel rock, rhythm, and blues song and put in digital drums, put in a heavy. In fact, I just released a song. It's a political song, so I don't know if you want to get into it, but it's called "Man in the White House." Okay, you can. Yeah. So basically, I have a friend in Paris, and he does electronic music. So he just gave me a track of his electronic keyboard, and I sort of broke it down and made it into an arrangement for a pop song. But it was basic off of his electronic keyboard and his electronic drums that went with that keyboard sound, and I made it into a pop song. So you can do that, blend, and that's well, I like to do more of that as well, sort of blend the two elements.
So for the people who are listening in, Bob here, he also has his own podcast that he runs periodically off and on. And what is the name of that podcast you got there, Bob?
Well, I'm just developing. I did a podcast during the presidential election, and it was strictly a news show, even though I brought in music. But I was following. I mean, I have a history background. I have a BA in history, so I love politics. I mean, probably for my own good. And I'm not one of these. And I think you see more artists too get involved in politics, whether you're on the left or on the right, because it's so much of a part of our world now that they're writing a song about a boy and a girl, which is the classical examples everyone goes to. Now people are starting to be more self-aware socially. Social conscious was a big term. So I've written a lot of songs with a social consciousness, awareness sort of thing. So when I do my podcast, I like to try to bring in both elements, news, current events, and the music, and try to blend the music with the current events. So that's what I'm working on right now. I'll probably start doing that in the next week or two. It's called The Robert Jeter Show. But I like to say it on the second title would be Rock, Rhythm, and Blues in the News. So
blues in the news. And what platform are you running that on right now?
Right now I'm using Spreaker. Okay. And I guess once I do a couple of episodes and I like the way it sounds, I'll just upload it. Mixcloud you use, right? You just
I'm on Mixcloud right here. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll upload it and try to submit it to iTunes and all those sites as well.
Oh, cool. I haven't really got into doing that with my podcast yet. And maybe
You always
I
post it
should
to
look into
Facebook.
doing it.
Facebook is still the go-to spot for, even though they say the kids don't use Spotify anymore, they use Instagram, but I don't know. It changes all the time. But there are a lot of ways. I mean, we live in a digital age, so it's all you can do is click here and click
Right.
there.
You know, there was a time where I the other month I was just so glued to my phone and scrolling here. I got my phone in my hand. You know, you get people that just sit there doing this with your thumb, you know, and scrolling down. I was so addicted to my phone, I couldn't get anything done.
Yeah.
So I was working at the local gym, and I'm just, you know, doing a little janitor work here and there just to kind of pick up a couple extra hours to pay the electric bill. And so watched this guy go into the gym, and he sat there the whole time while his buddy was working out down in the gym and scrolling in his phone. I go, do I really do that? Do I think about it? Do I just sit there?
You have to watch this
in my life and scroll through my phone? I do it. And I think about it, and I was like, you know what? So I took a break, and I uninstalled all social media off of my phone for about a month. And now I'm kind of just slowly reinstalling. I still haven't gotten Facebook back on my phone because I'm afraid.
Yeah, you have to be careful. I mean, if you're wasting time on it, you can waste time very easily with it.
Right.
Recently, like when there's other business I'm into, I find I can market while I'm making phone calls or doing other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
One positive thing about using a phone is that I can market on the phone, you know, by going to certain sites and marketing here while I'm actually making phone calls or something else over here. It's like a double tasking. So it depends on how you use it. You know what I mean? It's like anything else. You know, it's a tool. But you can, and if you're just following what people are saying, and commenting on some friend who said something weird, you know, you're just basically wasting your time there. But it's a battle we all having because we all live with it. You know, the whole world has gone another way.
It is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you kind of have to be on both platforms.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was great talking with you today, Robert, and looking forward to talking more on the next session we do. You also have, what's your website you got going on for your music?
Music. You can look up Bob Jeter, BOBJETER.com. And that's my music site. So all my links to my music, a lot of my music anyway, is there. So just click on that site. Give me a listen. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time, Weston. We'll hopefully do again soon. Okay.
Yes, it will be great. Great.